So I think we will get started with the presentation now, and as people join us, we can obviously catch up on anything that anyone may have missed. My name is Melissa Gibson. I am one of the regional heads of international recruitment and partnerships here at the University of Southampton, and I'm delighted to be joined by colleagues from Marwell and from the university, Judith and Heidi, to talk about the programme. So I will pass over to Heidi to start the presentation.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Melissa. Hello, everybody. It's lovely to be here and be able to have an opportunity to share some information about our amazing programme with you. Just so that you've got a flavour of what's coming up, just a quick run through then of what we will cover. First of all, we just want to talk about the two partners. So a bit of info about the University of Southampton and then some information about Marwell Wildlife. We'll then get into some information about the MRes programme itself and why it's so powerful, both for us as the partners and of course for you as the students and our alumni crowd as they grow and move into the world. We'll also introduce you to some of the people involved in our programme and give you some of the nuts and bolts, so the course structure, where the study locations are, what you can expect from the taught element, the research element of the programme, which is especially exciting, and our field course to Kenya.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Judith Locke and I'm based in the School of Biological Sciences in the University of Southampton, and as Heidi mentioned, we have two programme leads for this MRes because it's what's called a collaborative programme. So I'm the programme lead at the university and Heidi is at Marwell. So a quick introduction to the School of Biological Sciences. We've got 6 research divisions which span all of biological sciences, from cells to whole organism and the environment. So lots of different aspects, which including lots of topical aspects for 21st century biological sciences. We have 7 undergraduate degree programmes and 3 postgraduate MRes programmes. So MRes Wildlife Conservation is one of those 3. We also have MRes Advanced Biological Sciences and MRes Big Data Biology. So MRes Wildlife Conservation students are part of a larger community of postgraduate students within biological sciences. But I'll hand over to Heidi now, who's going to talk to you about Marwell Wildlife.
Thanks, Judith. So Marwell Wildlife is a registered conservation charity. We operate globally, but we also own and run a zoo in our headquarters in Hampshire in the UK. But it's very important to note that the zoo is just one component of our wider conservation organisation. In actual fact, we are an award-winning global conservation NGO with a track record spanning over 30 years. In fact, the animal that you can see on the slide there is a scimitar horned oryx. It's something of an icon for Marwell Wildlife because we have been instrumental in reintroducing the species back into North Africa and been really, really key in a recent development that saw the species downgraded from extinct in the wild to just endangered, which sort of sounds like something you might not want to celebrate, but it's just something that doesn't happen very often in conservation at all, that a species goes from being extinct to being looked after in its natural range. And so that project's really only possible because of 30-year commitment to that species conservation and the local partnerships that made it all possible. We have our own team of conservation biologists that lead all of our conservation work. So often NGOs that run zoos will have a model where the money they take from the gate, they might funnel some of that towards conservation projects that are already operational in the world. Whereas at Marwell, what we do is we use that money to manage and develop our own central team of conservation biologists to deliver our own conservation portfolio. So we have bases and projects in the UK, in Africa and in Asia. and we really specialise in the restoration of threatened species and their habitats. The scimitar and oryx I've mentioned. We're also heavily involved in snow leopard conservation, the conservation of the Grevy's zebra, which is the world's most critically endangered zebra species in Africa, as well as a number of species that are really iconic in the UK, including most recently the white-clawed crayfish. So we have an active portfolio of conservation work and a very strong international reputation for making a difference where it counts and delivering positive outcomes, basically changing the world for the better. So the power of our MRes, why should you consider this programme? What's so special about it? Well, I think both Judith and I would talk to you about the strength and depth of the collaboration. The programme is over 10 years old, and Judith and I have been with it since the very beginning. We built it as the programme that we wished we could have done. And it's really embodied the best bits of the University of Southampton and the best bits of Marwell Wildlife wrapped up so that students can come and experience those in a one-year programme of study. It puts you in the centre of a team of practicing conservationists, and we've been involved in the design and the delivery of lessons and practicals since the very beginning. So 3 out of the 4 modules that you will study have actually been developed and are delivered at Marwell by our own team. Through the work that you will do alongside our team, you are exposed to career-defining professional networks. Nobody does anything in conservation on their own. It's all about collaboration and partnerships, which means that every time you touch anything to do with our conservation portfolio of work, you are instantly connected to a network of conservation professionals with global reach. Remember when I said that the research projects are especially exciting? One of the things that really defines this is the fact that the research projects directly support gaps in knowledge and research needs coming out of our conservation work. These are active, ongoing, real-world conservation projects that need your help in terms of your research expertise and your interests to help drive them forward. This means it's impact-driven research with real-world outcome.
And this is quite different to many other master's programmes which may have more theoretical type projects. These are real projects. You're part of a team. That is the strength of the programme, as Heidi said.
So not to put too fine a point on it, what do we get out of it? Why do we do this? We're a conservation NGO. Why have we partnered with the University of Southampton to provide opportunities for students? Well, one answer is research capacity. We understood a long time ago that the sheer number of questions we were generating from our conservation work meant that we weren't going to get to grips with them. We just didn't have the capacity within our direct conservation team. So we need some help. Those gaps in knowledge are critical because without information, you can't make evidence-based decisions. And evidence-based decisions are absolutely critical in an international arena where there are reputations, livelihoods, stakeholder relationships all in play. You need to know to the best of your ability that you are making the right move. So gathering information to inform those decisions is absolutely central to what any good NGO does, and especially what Marwell does. It's also an opportunity for us to advance through innovation. Every time we bring a team of students online, every time we bring new people into the programme each year, we bring in new eyes, fresh eyes, new ways of thinking, new thought processes, and nothing is off the table. So everything that we do, every problem that we come across, real world, up to the minute, we bring the students into, because there's every chance that somebody in our MRes team will come up with something quicker, better, smarter, newer than our team is already thinking of. So we absolutely maximise the potential for innovation by sharing and providing opportunity for everybody to collaborate within the MRes structure. But what about the students? What do you get? The first thing to say is that we typically run small classes of around 10 students each year. Looking historically at our data, we can see that over 90% of the students that have joined us on the programme have been awarded merits or distinction class. So they are high achievers, the projects are good in terms of demonstrating academic credentials, and they are awarded highly within the university system. Around 50% of our graduates are employed in conservation roles within a year, with over 20% on top of that pursuing further research via routes like PhD or other things. In fact, something that we say often, Judith, isn't it, is that this is probably as close to doing a PhD as you can get without actually doing one. So for anybody thinking about that as an onward pathway, it's a really good set of experiences to build upon. The research projects, as I've talked about, and the students delivering them are fully immersed into ongoing conservation projects and the teams, which creates all kinds of opportunities for development, connection, innovation. It's a really great experience, which means that you are CV building from start to finish through our MRes. Judith, is there anything you'd want to add to that?
No, sorry. I've just got a visitor here, just a minute.
For what it's worth, we're also really understanding about work-life balance because both Judith and I have families, and we're often splitting things between family and the programme. So it does mean that we have very real-world experience of managing work-life balance, which can come in handy. Judith, you're muted at the moment. So shall I give a bit of an introduction to some of the people involved in the programme? So the first thing to say about the team is that we are global leaders in academia and in conservation. Judith, are you still muted? Do you want to talk through your bit of the slide? If there are technical difficulties, I can do that. Okay, I'll do it for you, Judith. So Judith Locke, my colleague and my friend, after 10 years of working together, has been based at the University of Southampton for some time, as you can imagine. The programme is already 10 years old. She is a principal teaching fellow in ecology and evolution, and comes with a wealth of experience in behavioural ecology and conservation biology. Judith has been somebody historically through the programme that we've relied upon to cover off diverse subjects ranging from sand lizard ecology to animal welfare, and has been a brilliant member of the team throughout. I'm Dr. Heidi Mitchell. I have a very long job title, Head of UK Conservation Innovation and Engagement at Marwell. I did my PhD in the challenges of retaining species integrity in managed programmes for conservation. My research interests are all about applied behavioural ecology, and at the moment I'm especially interested in subjects that relate to how we apply the concepts of animal welfare but in wild contexts, because more and more we rely upon intervention to see conservation success. So human intervention, what are the impacts of that upon the welfare of animals? I've just put some photographs up here, which won't mean anything to anybody else, but they're there just to remind me, I suppose, to make the point that this is just the Marwell team. There's another team over at the university, but here are some of the key people involved in the programme, and they range from directors through to conservation geneticists, vets, people with animal behaviour background, people with landscape ecology background. We've got our biologists from Tunisia up on the screen. We've got our biologist team from Kenya up on the screen. And it's just to kind of give you a sense of how many players there are on the board at Marwell and how many people actively have input and drive forward the research projects. And here is the building that is base camp at Marwell Zoo. So within the zoo grounds, the Science and Learning Centre is based. So we have a wider estate at Marwell, which actually wraps around the outside of the zoo. It's quite large. It's about 300 acres all in. And the wider estate includes habitats like ancient woodlands and lowland meadow, which in the UK have declined by 97% in the last 30 to 40 years. So really, really key important UK habitat types that are all there and available for study and conservation work. So the MRes, or what we call the seminar room, is a dedicated space to individuals on our MRes programme. And it's based within this Science and Learning Centre. So it's your own space. It's where we do our lessons while we're at the zoo, but it also is a space that students use once they're in research phase to calm and spend time and have that base camp environment. The building itself is one that we share. So we have the UK conservation team based within there, animal science team, the education team, and we are just about to move our animal and plants management team over, which means the guys that oversee all the animal keepers and the curatorial teams. Also within the building, we have a lecture theatre that can seat up to 200 people, which means we have lots of opportunity to run engagement sessions, invite staff in to hear about projects that the students are working on, or just use those for other educational events. And we also welcome quite a lot of school groups through the building as well. So it's something that anybody that joins us would be aware of and be sort of immersed into a degree as school groups work their way through learning in the lecture theatre and other spaces within the building. We do have a number of conservation sites set across the world. So one is Eelmore Marsh. This is in the UK. It's a site of special scientific interest in the northern part of Hampshire. It's about an hour in the car from Marwell Zoo. We've managed it for over 2 decades. It's a rich complex of wet, dry, humid heathland, mire, grasslands and woodlands, and supports over 400 species of conservation concern. In fact, 2/3 of Britain's butterflies are resident on this site. We use grazing management to aid habitat restoration. So here you can see a Przewalski horse, which is an ancient breed of horse that was reintroduced into the steppes of Mongolia and other parts of sort of Eastern Europe. But at Eelmore Marsh, they lend their grazing power to help us manage the heathland complex. Heathland wants to succeed into woodland if left to its own devices, so it does need grazing management. We've also undertaken a sand lizard reintroduction on this location, sand lizard being the UK's only endangered reptile lizard. We also have sites in Tunisia. There are 3 national parks that we work in. They're listed there. My Tunisian pronunciation is not super, so I'll spare you. But we focus on desert antelopes within this environment. If you look very closely, you will be able to find a scimitar horned oryx in that desert picture. And another species called Adax, another desert antelope species that we focus on. Judith, I think you're back and able to communicate. Was there anything you wanted to add? Because I feel like I've talked quite a lot.
I think for the Marwell sites, you're probably more of an expert about them, except I suppose to say that as a university supervisor, I think I've been involved in projects at all of the sites, particularly Eelmore Marsh. We had lots of sand lizards projects there, and we also had a shared PhD studentship there. Lots of work on the sand lizards, the re-wetting, if you're more interested in habitat type projects. And it's a really lovely site. I've been for a walk around to see the Highland cattle and the orchids. It's a very special place. I haven't been to Tunisia, but again, I've been involved in a few projects, one with the tortoises a few years ago, and last year a student was looking at the scimitar horned oryx there, one of our wild welfare projects, which was really interesting to think about how the oryx may be affected. They're really adapted to desert conditions, but could climate change maybe be making things even more difficult for them? And Kenya, well, our current students returned from there just over a week and a half ago, staying with one of your main collaborators there, Heidi, Grevy Zebra Conservation Trust.
Yes, absolutely. So in Kenya, Marwell again has a very long history and lots of really deep partnerships, very valued partnerships. The Grevy Zebra Trust being one of them. And for the first time, we actually based ourselves entirely with the Grevy Zebra Trust team this time, and it was absolutely fantastic. We also support a number of community initiatives in that part of the world, and again through the field course students are connected with opportunities to engage with those and talk with community members about the work that's being done and what possibly still needs to be done, and what the challenges really are.
So we'll talk now about the structure of the MRes, because you may not have heard of this kind of master's programme before. It is different to a more traditional MSc. It's got a very large research focus. So it's a 12-month programme, and from a university perspective, that makes up 180 credits, whereas an undergraduate year is 120 credits. So it's got that extra 3 months on the end. And the teaching part is 1 semester, so it's 60 credits. And we've got it divided up into 3 modules, and Heidi mentioned that 2 of those modules are taught at Marwell. So you go to the zoo, to the seminar room, you walk past the rhinos on your lecture about rhinos, and the Grevy zebra and the scimitar horned oryx, they happen to all be in the same paddock. So that's the conservation biology module, partnerships in the field module, which includes the 10-day field course to Kenya. And then the university runs the statistics module, which is biological data science in R. And if you haven't heard of R, it's a freely available statistic software that requires coding experience. So the module gives it goes through a lot of the setup of the mathematical tests and the models and the coding as well. And because it's a freely available piece of software, that's a really valuable tool for if you go to work in a cash-strapped conservation organisation. The assessments, we've tried to think of a variety of assessments which cover different kinds of techniques and tasks that would be part of undertaking a conservation related career, as well as anything within research, because as Heidi mentioned, a lot of our students are interested in PhD programmes, and MRes is really good training for a PhD programme. It gives you a really strong grounding. Lots of our students have gone on to PhD programmes, and particularly for students coming from overseas, it can be a gateway into Europe to go on to PhD programmes. So we have presentations, project proposals, which would be considering all different aspects of what's required to undertake research in the field. and also looking across the academic literature and delving beneath it. So we're encouraging students not to take anything at face value. It's not about repeating information, it's about gathering as much as you can and putting it into lots of different contexts and you putting your spin on it, so doing something with that information. Then the research project. So our current students are just about to start their research projects now. It's 2/3 of the programme, and it's an independent project. You do have 2 supervisors, one at the university and one at Marwell. So there's all those challenges of trying to get 3 busy people to meet up to progress your project, but you are the project lead. Again, excellent skills for going on to further research. Heidi, did you want to talk anything about the research project?
I think it's probably just revisiting the point that each research project is set out to answer a need coming out of real world conservation projects, which means that there are inherent challenges in it. We are not in a lab. We do not always generate clean data. And sometimes you're reliant on situations that could be field-based, they could be partnership-based, they could be politically based, that may go slightly awry during the course of research, which if you are an experienced conservation scientist, as myself and Judith are, we understand entirely that this is vital experience because, frankly, I've never run a conservation project that didn't hit a hurdle before. But it does mean that from a student perspective, there is a lot of emphasis placed on that research proposal piece, because how you plan for your research and how you build in contingency, mitigations, plan Bs, potential ways that you could advance a project if a certain data set was not possible to collect or access is really, really important. And the whole process then is set up to temperature check how that's going, to provide support, to help through those supervisory teams and through the assessment process, really guide and catch anything that is challenging, because real world research is by its very nature quite challenging. And in this, it is a much more advanced research experience and really does provide experience that I think sets you up for navigating your own research projects in the future.
The field course, so we briefly mentioned this, it's one part of the module partnerships in the field. We're highlighting that the field course costs have been included in the course fees, because we're aware that sometimes other universities have field courses and they're not actually included in the fees. So you plan your finances for the whole year and suddenly you find that if you want to go on this amazing field course that you've chosen the programme for, actually you have to suddenly find several £100. So the field course has been factored into the finances of the programme. And as we mentioned before, our current students have just come back from an amazing trip to Kenya, staying at the Grevy's Zebra Conservation Trust camp for the 10 days. So they were essentially in the middle of nowhere in tents for 10 days, but absolutely loved it. The pictures that we've seen have been spectacular, and we've heard it's really got them engaged in the programme.
And I think it might be worth us saying, Judith, about what we've done with the module that the field course is set within. You can go onto any number of programs and find offers of field courses. And they are often, not always, but very, very often biologically led. And you will probably find that most field courses follow a fairly standard playbook in terms of the type of wildlife monitoring skills that you will acquire, and the kinds of sort of projects that you might undertake. Our field course is set within a module called Partnerships in the Field, and the emphasis that we place on the module is all about how to make real world conservation in field settings actually work. And as I said earlier, you don't do anything on your own. It's all about partnerships and collaborations in conservation. So this module really drills down into that. What does it look like in an international context? What does it look like when people are coming from different cultures, different socioeconomic backgrounds, but coming together around a project to make it work? And really exposing you to the realities of that and the successes and the challenges that come with it. So the field course is centered on that, which is why spending real quality time with the Grevy Zebra Conservation Trust as a long-term partner of Marwell is so powerful. You will still learn wildlife surveying skills. You will still have to do a mini project and present it back to the team on the ground about what you found, and you will still get to hone your animal behaviour and your sampling skills while you're there. But you'll do it in the context of an operational, collaborative, partnership-based project. So I think this slide is just to give you a flavour of the kinds of research that we are opening up at the moment for people to come and sort of express interest in as part of the application process. So you see there's a number of categories here: ecosystem, regeneration, connectivity and management, which is sort of including subjects like biodiversity restoration. This is sort of part of the kind of landscape, ecological, habitat management and evaluation sort of scheme of work. One Health, which is all about how the interconnectedness between health and welfare of animals, humans and their livestock wildlife interfaces, and ecosystems interplay together to help or hinder conservation and biodiversity in crisis. There's a section on connecting people with nature, which can include work like social impact of education. We have a project happening around that this time. But connecting people with nature is a much wider scheme of work and could include any of the sorts of partnership and community-based initiatives that we've just talked about in terms of our overseas areas as well. Sustainable living is an area of research where folks can drill down into subjects like carbon sequestration and storage, circular economy in terms of how we manage animal waste through the heating system, which then provides the means to maintain the woodlands and so on. There's a number of different ways that you can go with that. And finally, creating sustainable wildlife populations. This one's really about conservation genetics and population biology. So how do we manage and take individuals from ex situ populations to create biodiversity value in the wider world?
And we should probably highlight here that none of these topics are mentioning particular locations or species. That's not how we work on the research projects. We're not focused on species. It's what happens to answer the question, the bigger question. And the research projects could take place in any of Marwell's sites. But we should highlight here that research project costs are not included in course fees. They were previously. We had a model with different types of fee structures in the past, but students commented that that didn't work because they wanted to access the funds immediately. So it made most sense to take that element out so that they could, if they suddenly needed to book a flight, for example, they were able to do that themselves really quickly. And it also means that there's a whole scale in the cost of research projects. Database projects could essentially cost nothing, as opposed to 3 months in Kenya would of course cost a lot more. So there's the whole scale in between. And as part of the application process, if we invite you to interview, we talk about what really motivates you. And Heidi always has a lot of information about what opportunities are coming up, and she'll probe and ask lots of questions about what you're interested in. Heidi, did you want to add anything on that?
Yeah, I think it's probably worth us talking a little bit about our approach to people's development through the program, because this is an academic program. There are, as you will be aware, assessments and structures and things that are built in. But alongside, there is an awful lot of time spent with you, mentoring, chatting things through, figuring out where the real motivational pieces sit for each individual. And we really, really value providing everybody with a student experience that's second to none, and providing everybody with the opportunity to grow and develop in the ways that they want and need to, in terms of where they want to go next. Now, some of that means including a little bit of space for the I don't knows or the I'm not certains. Some of it almost always includes a little bit of space for the I thought it was this, but it turns out it's that. So the process of finding the right research project for each individual is one that we take really seriously, and we spend a lot of time considering very carefully between the strategic needs of Marwell and its conservation project, but also what it is the individuals are bringing to the party and where it is they really want to see their projects go in terms of field experience or technology experience, or wanting to work with extensive networks of people, or whatever it might be. It's not a case of here's a list of projects, pick one, and it's not a case of us coming up with something and imposing it on individuals. It's very much a considered conversation that is about really getting to know each other and getting to know what's most important for each individual student.
So our entry requirements, we do still require a 2:1 degree, and that's in a biological sciences or related subject, or equivalent experience to an undergraduate degree. So we've had veterinary students in the past as well, geography, zoology, biology, ecology. But it is a science. If you'd struggle without biological information, but if you have some relevant experience, please include it in the personal statement, because we do consider applications on an individual basis, and we're happy to talk to any potential applicants as well. So if you've got any queries for me, I'm the university's admissions tutor for the programme as well, and that's my email address. The international recruitment manager for the USA, Daniel Bell-Moran, you can email him as well if you maybe want to ask about how things work between the US and the UK. And I've also included there the general email address for the admissions team, if you've got any queries about how the admissions website works, that kind of thing. And this is our summing up slide. Heidi, I'll leave it to you to sum it up.
So the take-home messages are that this is a globally unique programme. We've looked, we can't find anything that has the same strength and depth of collaboration between two really well-placed organisations. The University of Southampton is a Russell Group university known for its research credentials, and Marwell Wildlife with its award-winning international NGO reputation. It's truly collaborative. Judith and I have worked closely together for the last 10 years, and that's not going to change. We speak most days. Everything that we do is very interwoven. It's a small group, remember, so if you join our programme, you are immersed into a real conservation team, because there's not 100 of you, there's more like 10 of you. So everybody has space to find their feet within Marwell Wildlife. Every research project has a real impact. Every research project is born out of a genuine need. So you get to study for a master's level qualification at an excellent university with all the support that brings, whilst obtaining real experience working in an active conservation organisation, making a real difference. As I said, this is the only MRes programme of its kind. We have looked and we cannot find anything similar. So we're very proud to be able to provide the opportunities we can. And we've done that for graduates from across the UK, the US, Europe and Asia so far.
Thank you so much, Heidi and Judith, for your presentation and the comprehensive overview of the programme. I want to study it. I wish I had the right background now to go into this area. Looks amazing, and obviously those opportunities, particularly for the coursework, the fieldwork, really do make the programme stand out against others conservation style programmes that are out there. So if anyone has any questions or anything that they would like to ask, then obviously please do put them in the Q&A. But just to get us started, in terms of the programme, so you've spoken about the real experience students get, the real projects and the sort of impact that that has over something that's sort of theoretical. And many people would want to use that experience to move on to the next stage of their career. So how do you help students to get their first job in industry following the programme? What support is available?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I suppose the obvious first point to make is that students are often exposed to those networks and conservation professionals at an international level. So doors tend to swing open. They tend to learn about opportunities as they're happening. And, you know, as with many sectors, being in the right place at the right time certainly helps. So this programme does set that up as well. We also run a careers-based session alongside the research phase. So at a point where we know that students are starting to think about next steps, they might be applying for PhDs, they might be applying for jobs. We do a bit of a session about actually how do you go about doing that? What does that look like, especially if you're moving into or thinking of moving into the not-for-profit sector? Because how you write your application and align to the real values of the organisations can be a really powerful thing to know how to do. So we do spend a bit of time with students just providing some baseline information. On top of that, Judith, we also have a little kind of factory going at a certain time of the year all about references, don't we?
Yes, we do. Yes, we get lots of reference requests. I think, as Heidi mentioned, you're being part of a really small group actually gives students a lot of confidence. So that staff-student ratio, when you add in the team at the university, the team at Marwell, it's really good. And I was particularly thinking of last year, we had students doing fieldwork in Tunisia, and they were also able to attend a conference in Tunisia whilst they were there. And one of them had applied for a PhD with someone who Tanya from Marwell happened to know, and she made the student, or she introduced the student and encouraged them to talk to the person, and following that, they were successful in obtaining that PhD position. So making those networks, that does physically happen, that example, and also through emails and correspondence. So those dots are joined up to help our students, and that confidence and being part of a real conservation team, because the world of conservation is quite small, so it really does seem to be a foot in the door.
Excellent. I mean, my next question was going to be about the social side of the course. Obviously, with a small cohort, I imagine you spend quite a lot of time together. So what does that sort of look like?
Yeah, it's true. And again, it's something that we give real thought to when we are interviewing people, because we are aware that we're not just offering places on a program, we're also building a team. So we like to have that in mind, because it's really good when a cohort clicks together. It's powerful. It's brilliant for being, producing solutions to problems when they can work together and talk together really, really positively. So we do give that real thought. But also, students are immersed into the wider world at Marwell and at the university. So at Marwell, this looks like things like staff quizzes and evenings in the zoo, and getting roped in to help out with all sorts of weird and wonderful things that need doing around the place, from helping, bash bits of stuff in the woodland to renovating sand lizard enclosures. There's always something happening. So it's quite a fun environment from that perspective. And I know Judith will talk a bit more about the university experience as well.
Yes, so the university has there's the BSPS Biological Sciences Postgrad Society that runs a lot of events and are really welcoming to master's students as well. There's a few journal clubs, and I think the students also make really strong friendships. Going on a field course always forms those strong friendships. We know that from undergraduates, but when you have that for a small number of students, they really form a very strong network. And from what we've gathered, those graduates will stay in touch. So they do provide that network to each other. We also have we have a Facebook group for alumni. We encourage LinkedIn people to connect alumni across different years as well.
Excellent. And obviously, being a student at Southampton, they have access to the student union. So with over 300 sports and societies, I mean, obviously they'll be very busy with their field work and everything, and their research, but getting them into the sort of the wider university community, that's a great option for them too, to sort of widen that professional and personal network, which is really great to see from all of our students.
Yes.
Yeah, we've definitely had students that have made use of that in really diverse ways, and it's always lovely to see, because it's quite an intense thing managing your own research project. Once you get to that phase, it's very immersive, it's very exciting, it's all of those positive things, but hey, everybody needs a break, everybody needs something else to think about, and research by its nature is quite demanding. So yeah, we've definitely seen students benefit from the diverse opportunities provided through the Students' Union.
In terms of the facility, obviously we had lots of imagery of what's sort of at Marwell, Judith, and there was a picture at one point of the Life Sciences building at Southampton. What sort of facilities are accessible to the students at the university?
So within the Life Sciences building, it really depends on their project. So last year we did have a student who was doing some work on soil microbiomes. So she did some lab work within the research labs in the Life Sciences building. Most of the projects don't need that, so they don't tend to come to the Life Sciences building so much, but it has got hot desks available for MRes students, and there's the library and the desk spaces in building 100 as well, if students want to use them as well.
Excellent. And obviously within the library as well, you've got the access to not only the sort of physical books that do exist and people do still use, but also all of the e-journal licenses and everything that the university support students with. So having those readily available, and the subject-specific librarians as well, who can support students when they're looking for those sort of wider research pieces. So You know, they've got Marwell, they've got the university, they've got all those additional support services. It sounds like for this MRes, they really have sort of the trifecta of all of the support they possibly can have, which is wonderful to see. So we're coming to the end of the sort of time slot for this presentation. So obviously been great to hear more about the MRes, about wildlife conservation, about the impact that the University of Southampton and Marwell are having together all over the globe. So it's just for me to say thank you, Heidi, thank you, Judith, for your time, for taking the time with this session. And we look forward to hearing from people that have interest in the in this particular course. And if they want to apply, they just go onto the course page and click apply. And we can help with that. So the key contacts are back on the screen again. So you've got Daniel, who is our international recruitment manager based in the USA. We've got Dr. Judith Locke, who's our admissions tutor here, and then the admissions team as well. So they're the primary contacts should you be looking to apply. If you're not from the USA, please don't be put off from emailing either Daniel or Judith. If it's not Daniel, it will be either myself or one of my team or colleagues that would be supporting you depending on where you are currently living around the world, but we're all readily available to help you. So again, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to hopefully seeing some of you with us here in Southampton soon.